stellar guard play has been on display this season in the Big East.
Ice water in the veins of Sterling Gibbs.
But we'll tell you which backcourt leader is the most valuable to his team. In 1988, a legendary basketball coach gave a young Steve Lavin his first shot at coaching.
I'm indebted forever because everything that's happened in basketball was a result of Gene Keady giving me an opportunity to work for him.
An inside look at the special bond between Coach Lavin and his mentor, Hall of Famer Gene Keady. We'll be joined by Bill Raftery, who tells you which team he has his eye on down the stretch.
Grand slam, send it in.
Plus, which coaches have their teams primed to compete next season. A Big East recruiting update on the way. And don't forget your weekly all-access pass.
When the ball's in the middle, you got to push it under the basket. Hold your ground.
It's time to go inside the Big East.
And we welcome you to Inside the Big East, sponsored by New York Life. It's the first show of February, which means the March Madness focus getting a little bit more serious, a little bit more intense. Glad you're here with us. Rob Stone, Kevin O'Neill, Donnie Marshall along for the ride. Something happened in the Big East this week that hasn't happened since 2011. For it, let's head to Rhode Island. Providence guard Chris Dunn messed around and got himself a triple-double in the Friars' victory over DePaul back on January 29th. Dunn, 27 points on 10 of 15 shooting, 13 boards and 11 assists. It was the first triple-double for a Friar since Jeff McDermott notched one in 06 against Harvard. Dunn also the first player to record a triple-double in conference play since a couple.
Wait, I'm seeing triple. Those are Husky UConn guys? Actually, that's a nice board there because Chris Dunn is from New London, Connecticut. So you might as well just keep it in the state.
There's a Constitution State
This is
theme.
the Kevin Ollie UConn Coaches Show, sponsored by Donnie Marshall.
Studs.
Well, we're back here in
Unfortunately,
the
none of
Big
those
East.
studs are me.
Let's talk about Dunn. Is he the best, the most influential guard in the conference right now?
In my mind, he is, Rob, because he's impactful on both ends. He's valuable to his team on both ends. I think he's probably going to end up being Defensive Player of the Year in the league. He's a guy that can do awesome things, which not a lot of guards in America can do. He makes his teammates better. He makes his team better defensively. I think he's the best guard in the conference and one of the best in the country.
I agree. His size, his athleticism, you can put him in any format. He can play that way for you, but you're right, he's got to take care of the basketball. But if you talk about a guy who is most valuable to his team, talking about guys who their team would not be able to survive without them, I think Providence would figure it out. There are other teams in the Big East as well. But I don't think St. John's, without D'Angelo Harrison, would be able to even survive at all. I don't think they have a guy, and he struggled a little bit during the season, but I don't think they have a guy who could take over for him. I love the way he plays under control. I wish he would press a little bit more. Lav has had some issues with him throughout his career with trying to get him motivated to try to keep him engaged, that word we always talk about, but I still think he's the most valuable to his team in the Big East.
And when he's hurt, they're not very good.
Right.
Which is a great point.
Harrison, another strong game in the Saturday win over Providence with St. John's sweeping the Friars in the regular season. Another guy who had a big weekend, Isaiah Whitehead, returning to activity with 19 points after that foot injury. How does he change things for the Pirates?
Well, I thought he'd have trouble assimilating back in. I thought he'd pout coming off the bench. He didn't. He gives him scoring punch. He gives him athleticism. And surprisingly for a freshman, toughness.
Shot selection in that first game back with 19 points was huge. And not only that, he plays hard. And I think players can fall in the line behind that. He can lead that way by just giving that outcome, that exertion. Mm-hmm. He really does do that every single play.
For another layer to the Big East this week, let's bring in Justin Kutcher and the governor, Bill Raftery, with the Onion Report.
Onions!
Justin Kutcher joined now by Bill Raftery for this edition of the Onion Report for Inside the Big East. And Bill, we're about halfway through this Big East season, so let's start off with a couple questions for you. Who is the most improved player in conference play since the start of the season?
There are a lot of players that have gotten better, but I think Daniel Oshefu has just been incredible. Early on, a rim protector type of kid and maybe contributing a little bit in running the floor and getting involved in some fast breaks. But now he's a low post game. Other than the physicality on occasion against some of the big guys, he may struggle there, but he's got that little bounce to a jump hook with either hand and faces up. It's just great to see him improve.
Okay, so Oshefu at Villanova, as far as a team to to watch going down the stretch, who do you like?
Wow, Butler, I think. Everybody in the league, every coach you talk to, they're in awe of what they've been able to do. It's one of those teams, nobody jumps out at you as though we'd love to have that kid on our team. But collectively, they are so solid. Toughness, defensively, we know what they can do. But they just have a great winning attitude and obviously a great winning tradition.
They really do, and they've done some great things this year. In 1 year's difference, it's amazing. Players to watch. Who is that one guy that you think we should watch that needs to step up for his team?
I've watched Georgetown a number of times, as you have. And the one thing about Devontae Smith-Rivera is he lets the game come to him patiently. But I think now it's a matter of urgency. Stepping up early in the game. He'll wait a whole half sometimes. I think he's got to look for himself, get involved offensively earlier in the ball game. It's certainly going to help this Georgetown team, which is a terrific team in itself.
I think the player to watch is actually you coming down the stretch here in the Big East. Yeah, that's
good taste.
All right,
you've got some onions
for this edition of Bill Raftery's Onion Report.
Still to come, Gene Keady gave Steve Lavin his first shot at being a coach. We'll show you how almost 27 years later, their relationship is stronger than ever. Marquette's Steve Wojciechowski has already secured a top recruiting class for next season. But which other Big East teams also have top prospects lined up? A Big East recruiting update comes your way next.
Basketball is just a game that we all happen to love. All of us that coach and play in it, we're a little crazy. I wouldn't say I live it. I love it, though. I love being around it. I love going to high school games. I love watching games on TV. I love being in the gym with our guys. I love talking about it. I feel very fortunate that a game I love happens to be my work. I tell our guys that the fact that we get to do that, it puts us in a great position in life because we get to enjoy the other things, too. But our work is our love.
Jay Wright's 2015 recruiting class comes in just behind Marquette for number 2 in the Big East. The Golden Eagles, 4 of Scout.com's top 100 committed for next season, while Villanova has top-rated point guard Jalen Brunson coming aboard. Georgetown, Creighton, St. John's round out the top Big East recruiting classes for now, at least. And with that in mind, we bring in Scout.com's director of recruiting, Evan Daniels, to break down what type of players will be joining the Big East next season. Number one, let's start with Marquette. How has Steve Wojciechowski been able to put together this class with just a few months under his belt at Marquette?
Rob, I think a lot of people thought Steve Wojciechowski would be successful at Marquette, but I don't think people quite expected to be this successful on the recruiting trail this soon. The nation's number 5 recruiting class in the country. He's done it by keeping guys home. 3 of his 4 commitments are from the state of Wisconsin. I actually talked to Steve Wojciechowski last night on the phone, and he told me the key to this class is Henry Ellenson, but he also noted there's other guys in this group that can really help, and really help right away. I think Hanif Cheatham, his versatility, his ability to score, his ability to pass, that stuff can help Marquette next year. And then Matt Helt has a lot of upside, a lot of offensive tools, and Nick Neskowiak, another local kid, can really shoot the basketball. So that's 4 players that I think can contribute at Marquette next season.
Ellenson, the highest rated of those 4. What should the Golden Eagles expect from him?
Well, I think the thing that sticks out about Henry Ellenson is his versatility. At 6'10", he's comfortable on the block. He has a lot of offensive tools, and he's got good hands, good touch around the basket, can score with hook shots. But he's also able to step out on the floor and make jump shots from both mid-range and 3. He can start the break. Steve Wojciechowski told me he thought he was a top 2 or 3 player in the country. I have him number 6, so we're not far off.
Nova's class ranked 18th nationally, largely in part of the commitment of Scouts' top point guard Jalen Brunson. What is he expected to bring to the Wildcats?
Well, I think with Brunson, it's all about his leadership qualities, his ability to facilitate, his passing ability. But if he's shown us anything during his senior season, it's that he can also score. He's a very good long-range shooter. He's a really good and comfortable from mid-range as well. Jay Wright's had a long list of really talented point guards. You could go down the list: Kyle Lowry, Scotty Reynolds. I think he's really pumped up and ready to have Jalen Brunson on campus as well.
Let's transition over to Georgetown. Their class ranked just outside of the top 25. Commitments from a pair of top 100 players. How do you evaluate the Hoyas class?
Well, I think this is a nice complementary class, especially if you look back at that 2014 group. They've already got guys like L.J. Peak and Isaac Copeland contributing, and they needed a big-time center, and I think they're getting one in Jesse Govan. He's going to be able to come in and take over for Josh Smith. At 6'10", he's got a wide base, a big, strong body. He's physically ready to compete at the college level, and he's a very good area rebounder, has a go-to jump hook over his left shoulder. Jesse Govan's a player, and Marcus Derrickson, the other top 100 guy in this class, he really stretches the floor with his jump shot, a high-level perimeter shooter. So this is a solid group for John Thompson.
Evan, let's go under the radar, if you will, right now. What type of guy who isn't getting a lot of pub right now you think could have a big impact next season and beyond in the Big East?
You know, Rob, I think Justin Patton, a kid that's signed with Creighton, is not only under the radar in terms of the Big East, but also nationally. I got to see him twice in July and was just really impressed with his overall makeup and his upside. He's 6'10", he's long, mobile, very good rim protector, and there's an interesting story behind him. I talked to Steve Lutz, the recruiting coordinator at Creighton. He said he's grown 8+ inches in the last 18 months. Creighton wasn't even recruiting him. They invited him to an elite camp, offered him on the spot, and he committed the next day. I think Justin Patton's a name we're going to be talking about quite a bit in the next 2 or 3 years.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for that name. And a lot of undecided big-time recruits still lurking out there in the nation. This whole conversation could change within days. Evan, we appreciate the insight.
Thanks for having me.
When Steve Lavin took over at St. John's, he brought along the man who was responsible for him becoming a coach. A look at the impact legendary coach Gene Keady has made on Lavin and the Red Storm.
I call him our Mr. Miyagi, you know, our wise old owl. He's our Socrates. And just the wisdom, the perspective that someone his age brings to the table. He keeps us grounded, keeps us centered or balanced.
It's a huge day of Big East hoops in our Fox family of networks next Saturday, February 7th. Creighton visits St. John's, noon Eastern on Fox Sports Networks. At 1 Eastern on Fox Sports 1, Xavier hosts Providence. At 1:30 Eastern on Fox, Villanova looks to avenge their loss to Georgetown, and then DePaul will head to Butler, 3:30 Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Gene Keady retired from Purdue as a Big Ten legend in 2005 when his old assistant Steve Lavin took the St. John's job in 2010. He coaxed Keady out of retirement. Now they spend every day together, including riding to and from campus and Manhattan together. Recently, they let us tag along for a ride.
Coach, you need makeup? I think I need makeup.
Yeah, I need it too. Any game is tough on the road in any league.
Yep. Omar was better today. He was good. He played well again. I mean, he practiced well again today.
Well, Phil was making his three-pointers. Wow. He was firing them in.
Coach Keady, Bob Knight, Mike Krzyzewski, and Jerry Tarkanian were the 4 coaches that I began writing letters to while I was in college. All 4 wrote back, and we began to pen pal.
I told him it'd be okay to come to Purdue and be my GA.
The job opened in 1988 at Purdue, and Gene Keady hired me as an assistant coach, and the rest is history.
I thought he had an opportunity to be very special in his career, and it turned out I was right.
Never forget about the offensive rebound at the end of every possession. We haven't got people on the boards like we do. You too got to get on the offensive glass and get some second shots.
The very first time I met him, we hit it off. Just a natural friendship and mutual admiration or love for one another.
It was quiet this morning.
Yeah, it's usually pretty quiet after a loss.
Yes. Actually, you know what? They all practice pretty well.
Yeah, in order for us to get better in practice, the second 5 or the third 5 had to push the first 5 to get better.
Yep.
I'd say in the history of basketball, Gene Keady is one of the handful that maximized his personnel, develops his assistant coaches, and prepares them to become successful head coaches, because while they were assistants during their apprentice years, they had an opportunity to sharpen or develop every aspect of what it takes to become a successful head coach.
Did Purdue win? Who'd they have? They have someone tonight? Are they back at it?
Yeah, they won their last game. Beat Penn State.
That was last, so they must be playing again soon here.
I'm called a special advisor, executive advisor. to the head coach. My role is to recommend to the coaches what they should do. I coach the coaches.
I call him our Mr. Miyagi, you know, our wise old owl. He's our Socrates. And just the wisdom, the perspective that someone his age brings to the table. He keeps us grounded, keeps us centered or balanced.
Way to shoot, Philip!
He's going to be on the bench this weekend.
Good.
He's fired up.
I told you, now you just said, you know, the risk you're taking doing that is if we get beat, you'll never be invited back.
That's right. You're either a good luck charm or the GOAT.
Yep. Guy treated him like a son, and I know I could never replace his dad, of course, because his dad was a good friend and very special individual. But he's very close, like a son and a family.
Other than my mother and father, is the most influential person in my life.
I'm very proud of him, happy with his coaching progress.
I'm indebted forever because everything that's happened in basketball was a result of Gene Keady giving me an opportunity to work for him.
What a luxury to have Keady by your side. He was inducted into the National Collegiate Hall of Fame in 2013, 6 times named National Coach of the Year, and he won 6 Big Ten championships while at Purdue.
From inside the huddle to a spot on the sidelines, your Big East All Access Pass is coming up next.
I enjoy cooking. I like making, chicken parmesan is probably my favorite meal. I enjoy, going to different places and trying different foods and then, trying to learn and make it on my own. I enjoy watching movies and I enjoy traveling.
For fun, I bowl. I think the highest score I've ever got was 265. Tuesday night's usually the night to go bowling at school, but with practice and everything like that, I don't really get to go as much during the season. And also, I just like hanging out, having a good time with my buddies.
I love to fly fish, but can't really do that so much in Ohio. And golfing, when I get an opportunity to do so.
Back on January 27th, before their victory over Georgetown, the Musketeers had the opportunity to take a tour of the U.S. Capitol, courtesy of Xavier alum and Speaker of the House, John Boehner, a 1977 graduate of Xavier, and he told the team on their visit that Xavier prepared me for this. Saw him earlier on the Onion Report, but our own Bill Raftery, along with some of his players from the 79-80 Seton Hall Pirates, honored during their game Saturday against Xavier for being the first Seton Hall team to play in the Big East. Here's a look at the Big East women's standings as of January 31st, and it is Seton Hall on top, 8-1 in conference play, 19-2 overall. On this week's All Access look into the Big East, we'll take you inside the huddles, but we're also able to mic up Georgetown coach John Thompson III in their game versus Xavier. Enjoy.
Move it! We got to go fast like that. Everything has to be fast like that. Everything has to be fast. It's getting safe.
You got to finish it by blocking out. Everybody, you got to do your job. You got to carve out space, not let him get it. If he rolls you into the post, same thing. Fight to front. When you gather, you've got to go up, not for fadeaways, right? Not for fadeaway shots. It's got to be going towards the rim, attacking their feet.
He's getting bumped. Good job. There we go. Come on, baby.
Double ball screen. If they switch it, make sure you screen the guy that switches onto the guard.
What they make, 4 threes this half already?
Yeah.
Come on. We're better than we're showing right there. When you can't, you're open. You're throwing it backwards to Chris. He's guarding. I'm saying just be aggressive. Take what they give you. Don't get cute offensively. Stay aggressive.
Communicate. All right? Contest shots. Block out. Tougher. More physical right now. Let's go. What are we waiting on?
Oliver Purnell firing up the troops. Did you ever hesitate to get mic'd up?
I was always mic'd up, but mine never came out. Mine was always like, beep, bring it in.
Can you imagine that
Let's
delay?
go.
How much of a delay would you need on that?
Come on.
The sensor still has shape.
You don't think those guys were That was edited.
I
Believe me.
I know where you're going.
I know all those guys.
I understand your point. On next week's Inside the Big East show, we'll take you deep into Creighton and take you on a tour of the Champions Center, which just opened in June. The brand new, spanking new athletic facility wouldn't have been possible without the passion and support from Blue Jay fans.
We're blessed with one of the best fan bases in the country. When you think about the top 5 in the country in attendance, and you talk about Louisville and Kentucky and Syracuse and North Carolina and Creighton, a lot of people don't think that fits. And I think that's what makes our fans unique.
We are like the only sports team here, really the big sports team here in Omaha. So when we go around the city, we get greeted everywhere we go. Pictures, autographs, everything, you name it. It's kind of like everything you could ask for when being a basketball player.
And you can see that full feature on our next installment of Inside the Big East, Sunday at 4 Eastern. Creighton is a legit place for hoops.
It really is. You talk about that Champions Center when you got guys like Tolliver, Corver, and now McDermott, who are alum. They got tons of money to give back to that place. But not only that, their fans are amazing, because when you're struggling, that's when you know exactly, right, Coach, what your fans are all about. It's easy when everyone's winning, but when you're losing, that's when the true fans come out.
Packed every game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've stayed in that hotel next to the arena. Game days, beer's blue.
Party.
It's like Mardi Gras.
New Year's Eve.
And they travel at the Big East tournament
Yes, they
last
do.
year in New York
Yes, they
City.
do.
Everywhere you looked, you saw Blue Jay fans. Until next week, enjoy the Big East hoops.